Good day. You're listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. This is CJ Miller, your host, and we are progressing in the Doodle Book Club. If you're still with me on this process, I commend you to sticking to it and sticking to your spiritual practice. We are going to be talking about chapter 9 today. I think it's something I need to hear. Quote, you're an original, an individual, a masterpiece. Celebrate that. Don't let your uniqueness make you shy. Don't be someone other than the wonder you are. Every star is important to the sky. End quote. Douglas Pagels. This is Chapter 9, Intelligence of Being. During one of my visits to Santa Fe, a fellow student brought in some fresh local cantaloupe. I had never experienced such an incredible piece of fruit. The delicate rind was exquisitely soft to the touch. As we cut into the fruit, the rich, musky scent filled the room, and the exquisite taste experience remains transfixed in my memory. It was perfectly sweet, perfectly ripe, and melted delectably in my mouth. Sitting in the courtyard, listening to the breeze rattle the leaves of the poplar trees above, I thoroughly enjoyed that gift of nature. I quickly realized that the cantaloupe sold in my grocery store at home never tasted so wonderful. Why such a difference? Perhaps it's because market raised cantaloupe is often encouraged to grow quickly, harvested before its time, and stacked indelicately on the counter. Same seed, different circumstance. As I sat there pondering my question, I had an enlightening moment. It suddenly became clear that there is an intelligence behind that cantaloupe vine, and that intelligence responds to certain conditions. How else could it know to bear such ripe, irresistible fruit? How did an extremely tiny seed sprout into a sturdy vine capable of holding that plump fruit? How did it know to grow up to the sky and not down to the earth? How did it know to trigger this action upon contact with water? That seed contained an intelligence of being, capable of directing the plant into full maturity. While it would grow in various situations, it responded best to the climate of New Mexico. The synchronization of many optimal conditions took place for the successful fruition of this plant. Ideal soil, rainfall, and sunlight contributed to its realized expression of the delicious fruit that sat before me. The more we learn about nature and the world around us, the more we recognize a powerful intelligence that drives the force of creation. Everything that surrounds us follows specific rules and behaviors to benefit. When we follow those rules and seek the best environment for our intelligence, we prosper. Not only does this intelligence exist in the world that surrounds us, but it exists within us. If we honor this intelligence within ourselves, we will bear fruit. One of America's greatest essayists and philosophers, Ralph Waldo Emerson, carefully explored nature and its laws for philosophical purposes. He sought to understand the human condition in the natural order. Quote, a little consideration of what takes place around us every day would show us that a higher law than that of our will regulates events, that our painful labors are very unnecessary and altogether fruitless, that only in our easy, simple, spontaneous action are we strong, and by contenting ourselves with obedience do we become divine. Oh, my brother, God exists. There is a soul at the center of nature and over the will of every man, so that none of us can wrong the universe. It has so infused its strong enchantment into nature that we prosper when we accept its advice, and when we struggle to wound its creatures, our hands are glued to our sides as they beat our own breasts. Place yourself in the middle of the stream of power and wisdom which flows into you as life. Place yourself in the full center of that flow. Then you are without effort impelled to truth, to right and perfect contentment. End quote. While his language is slightly dated, the emphasis is clear. There is an intelligence in the universe, and when we listen to this intelligence, we find right and perfect contentment. I believe that we activate this intelligence internally through our consciousness. Not only does every physical manifestation possess this intelligence, but we also have a unique intelligence within that can only be expressed through our unique perspective. Because we are part of nature, every one of us is a completely unique expression of spirit. A good artist recognizes that there is an intelligence behind their craft. They learn to apply the correct pressure to the clay on a potter's wheel. They understand the exact temperature where glass melts to create beautiful fused glass. They recognize the proper viscosity of paint to apply to their brush. Most artists focus on the rules of their craft and continue to refine and add to their intelligence as their skills mature. But I believe that each artist possesses a secondary intelligence, which is more specific to them. Because we are part of nature, every one of us is a completely unique expression of creative intelligence. Let us consider a more in-depth intelligence, an intelligence of being. When we typically think of intelligence, we usually frame the word in understanding a skill, like painting. I could have experience in working with oil paints or intelligence based on my familiarity with flow acrylics. But I'd like you to consider that you have an innate intelligence, a unique creative DNA unto yourself, and your creative DNA is unlike any other person in existence. The cantaloupe seed contains an intelligence of being, a unique hardwired code that knows how to work within its environment. It responds to the intelligence of the world around it. When planted in an ideal situation, it realizes a glorious fruit. Likewise, because we are part of this natural world, every person on this planet has an individual intelligence of being. Like that cantaloupe seed, we exist to express our distinctive nature. I'm going to read that again. Like the cantaloupe seed, we exist to express our distinctive nature. A spiritual artist recognizes that there is an intelligence behind the universe and within themselves. There is no one else like you. As an individualized expression, we have the same characteristics of nature itself. We are creators by our very nature. A squirrel collects acorns, and a bird flies south in the winter. And you have an individual nature that needs to be set free. But what is ours to do? Our work as spiritual beings is to monitor our thoughts and beliefs continually. Our goal is to realize that that we are more than our emotions. Our challenge is to acknowledge our skills and express them completely. When we practice these skills, our creative work will always be original, unlike the work of anyone else. We are meant to seek the perfect soil and moisture for our creativity to set roots, grow, and bloom. Like the delicious cantaloupe brought into the studio on that autumn day, we will bloom when we are consciously present and listen to the guidance from within. Wow. Well, I have to tell you, I do and a firm believer that when I set a spiritual practice like you're doing here, and I listen to something every day, it ties in directly to something I need to hear. And this is actually something I've been wrestling with myself on a personal level just yesterday, where I'm trying to work in a certain environment and realizing that that's not the environment for me. When I originally wrote this chapter, my main focus was on the fact that I wanted to communicate to people to recognize that there is some sort of intelligence in them and it is guiding them into the right place. And I do want you to understand that. You have something unique about you, some gift that's unlike anyone else's. And if you just let go, this isn't about forcing your life through, it's about letting go and letting that uniqueness come out. And if that uniqueness comes out, and the more you let it come out, you will be successful, you will be abundant, you will be happy, you will be at peace. All those things will fall into place. You have to just let it go, let it out, trust it, trust it. And so I want you to understand in this chapter that cantaloupe, it doesn't need to trust its programming. It just does. You as a human have the choice. As a spiritual artist, are you going to trust the DNA that's in you? Are you going to trust that it's going to take you places? So that's the primary message in this chapter. But there's a secondary message. And that's a message I needed to hear today. You also have to know and recognize if you're in the wrong environment. That cantaloupe, it just didn't seem to grow as well in Texas as it did in New Mexico, for whatever purpose. You, as a spiritual artist, need to be able to make the decision to move, to change your environment. Whatever that means, if that means taking a different job, if that means moving into a new relationship, if that means moving to a different part of the country, if it means leaving an organization to go to another organization, you have to put that, you recognize what your creative intelligence is, and then you put it in the environment where it grows. And I learned this from painting because each painting, and I am struggling with a series of paintings right now. It's a triptych that's going to be at my show this fall. I have to let it be what it wants to be. And of course, I fight it. We all do, right? We fight it. We want it to be something else. But if I let go and I just listen and I just be present, the painting will tell me what it wants to be. The same thing is with your life. If you just let go, if you stop trying to force yourself to be something you think you're supposed to be, what you're told you're supposed to be, and trust what's within you, you will express like that cantaloupe. You will be perfect. Your efforts will be rewarded so well. So I needed to hear this today. I definitely needed to hear to let go and trust, but I also needed to hear that I need to put myself in the right environment. And if an environment isn't suiting me, to let it go. So I'm glad you're here this morning. I look forward to continuing this journey with you, and we will talk to you soon on the Spiritual Artist Podcast. See you tomorrow. Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.